Good, good afternoon, everyone. Acting as a chair of the delegation EU-Brazil, I'm really proud to receive this special event related with Amazon Week. And to start this event, I think we are right now in time. I would like to congratulate Mr. Ambassador Pedro Miguel da Costa e Silva. It's a good friend, but more than a good friend, he's a really committed and dedicated Brazilian ambassador in Brussels. And since the beginning of my term, my mandate, we are working hardly together concerning the relationship between European Union and Brazil. Thank you so much for your support. And once again, it's a privilege and an honor for me to be here and to receive this special invitation to open this very important event. Dear speakers, once again, thank you. Thank you also to accept the invitation to be in the European Parliament. It's our house of democracy in the European Union. And also maybe for some of you, it's the first time here, I guess. And I hope you will come back later. Dear participants, good afternoon to everyone. And I'm delighted to welcome you to this conference, Amazon Week, which is of vital importance today. We have come together this morning to tackle one of the greatest challenges of our time, the climate crisis and the essential role of financing, which is necessary if we are to achieve the goals we have set ourselves. This means this is the second meeting of the day related with this relation between EU and Brazil, and the target of 1.3 trillion, the estimated shortfall in climate finance, looms over us as a warning, but also a challenge. This figure, it's a huge figure, a huge number, which may seem daunting, should actually catalyze our action, and I hope so. It represents an opportunity to innovate, to collaborate, and to renew our commitment to a sustainable future, and we are working together in this issue of sustainability. And I think this event today, it's full oriented to keep our Amazon as one of the most important forests of the world. And you have this unique opportunity to have this green space in the heart of the Brazil. And of course, this is the main reason also because we are, like you, so proud to host this event. And in this context, the forests, and in particular the Amazon, have an indisputed leading role. The Amazon, it's not only one of the largest carbon sinks in the planet, essential for regulation the global climate. It is also a sanctuary of an unparalleled biodiversity, home to ancient indigenous community and a pillar of ecological stability in South America. Protecting and restoring the Amazon is therefore a climate, social and economic imperative, and we feel that as Europeans also to take care about your and our Amazon. Anyone who ignores or underestimates this reality is making a gigantic mistake with global consequences. We need to recognize that the solutions to the climate crisis are not limited to innovative technologies, but also lie in the wisdom of nature, its ability to absorb carbon, regulate ecosystems, and protect us from the most severe climate impacts. And this is where financing nature-based solutions emerge as a fundamental pillar. On this journey, I hope the European Union has shown unwavering leadership. As one of the biggest supporters of the Paris Agreement, the EU has committed to reducing greenhouse gas emissions by at least, as you know, it is spread in the whole world, 50% by 2030 compared to 1990 levels, and to achieving climate neutrality by 2050. The European has also launched the ambitious European Green Deal, and we are all the days nowadays sometimes to rethinking the timetable concerning the Green Deals, with an investment plan to support the transition to a sustainable economy, mobilizing investments totaling more than 1 trillion euros over a decade. The Just Transition Fund demonstrated how the EU supports the regions and sectors most affected by the transition to a low-carbon economy. The European Union has committed to increasing its financial contribution, and today we are discussing the funds to help developing countries, recognizing that funding is essential, is crucial for me, for the implementation of adaptation and mitigation measures. The EU has also mobilized the resources from public and private resources, because from the public side and the private side, all of them must be committed in this to achieve these goals. And these public and private sources promoting partnerships with multilateral financing institutions. The European Parliament continues to press for greater climate ambition and increase in international funding. Active participation in discussions about initiatives, solutions, and practical ways to bridge the funding gap is crucial. By combining governmental efforts, private initiative, and the involvement of civil society, it will be possible to address this issue more comprehensively and effectively. And as the G20 report on sustainable financing 2024, this discussion is not purely theoretical. The G20 has been hard at work exploring practical solutions to this challenge. First, round tables with the private sector will explore how to unlock the private capital needed to finance forest conservation and restoration. Secondly, in workshops on climate finance in urban contexts, it is recognized that cities are more important centers for both mitigation and adaptation. Thirdly, by discussing how the G20 can support carbon markets on high integrity, it is ensuring that these markets are transparent, fair, and effective in financing climate projects. Beyond these specific events, we need to focus on building a broader, more comprehensive vision. Here are some of the questions to which we must seek answers. First of all, how can we create policies and incentives that make investment in forests and other nature-based solutions more attractive to the private sector? Because as I said before, and I think all the interventions are in this way, the private sector, it's a key issue in this area. The second question is, how can we ensure that funding reaches local communities and indigenous people who are the most effective guardians of the forest? And you know better than me what's happened with these special communities. And the third question that I would like to raise in the beginning of this event, how can we create financial mechanisms that value the ecosystems services that forests provide beyond simply capturing carbon? To finalize, I would like to say that the debate is therefore open, and I hope everyone will take an active part of this discussion, because only then will we be able to find innovative and impactful solutions. Thank you very much, and I wish you a very productive and useful debate. Thank you so much. Minister, I wish you the best moderation during this event. Thank you so much.
Mr. Chairman, the minister, I won't ask him to give me the floor because.
No, I give you the floor.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here. A special thanks to our panelists, both here and online. I promised to you that I wasn't going to speak long because I spoke this morning. The chairman kindly hosted an event about energy transition, in which we discussed not only that, but also bioplastics, and we discussed the raw materials, the inputs of clean energy in raw materials, and how all that can contribute to sustainable development. I won't try to answer your questions because that is the role of the panelists and of the discussion, but I want to tell you that your event here today, the one that you're helping to host, is the last event of our Amazon Week. We had one on the bioeconomy in which we tried to answer some of the questions. Then there was a meeting with the DG INTPA to try to find project opportunities and business opportunities, again, trying to answer your question. And now we come to the third one, which will discuss financing. So this has been a priority of Brazil. We have this Amazon Week here in Brussels. We have it also in Paris and in Berlin. We have made COP30 the general theme of this year's Amazon Week. The success of COP30 and the effective implementation of the Paris Agreement are central for Brazil as the conference host and as a country and society with a historical commitment to sustainable development and to its promotion through multilateral negotiations. We are certain that partners like the European Union share the same objective and will rise to the occasion with us to turn COP30 into a demonstration that international cooperation is alive in the midst of the current adverse conditions. And I was the one, Mr. Chairman, that insisted that we had an event here in the Parliament with your help, because I think the participation of the European Parliament is fundamental. The expansion of climate investment and finance in favor of developing countries and the consensus on the 2024 G20 report on sustainable finance, among other results, formed an important part of the G20 leaders' final declaration last year during our presidency. The title of our panel today starts with the 1.3 trillion target that you mentioned, agreed in COP 29. I believe the panel will deal with more details of this issue, as well as other initiatives such as the TFFF, but it is necessary to remind everyone of the magnitude and the existential character of the challenge and of building consensus that 1.3 trillion indeed reflects the financing needs resulting from the climate emergency. Our countries will certainly need to make tough choices. I will conclude my words stressing that the key word here is partnership. Partnership at the multilateral level between Brazil, the EU, and its member states. Partnership between governments, private sector, and civil society. Fortunately, these three sectors are represented here today, both in the panel and in the audience. A combination of large-scale financing and more focused initiatives will be necessary, so long as we keep moving forward. Economic incentives will have to be present so that businesses and financial institutions engage, like you mentioned. No one will address these challenges alone, and doing something is better than doing nothing. The Brazilian presidency of COP30 is making a call to action to combat climate change, and we hope we can make a small contribution to this objective today. I wish you all enjoy the panel and encourage you to participate actively in it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
So good afternoon. With your permission, Excellencies, we'll start the panel. I think you have set with your interventions a very good platform for our discussions today. We have limited time, so I think we'll start the discussions immediately or as soon as we can. As was said, the 1.3 trillion target is a big headline number. And in addition to that, it's a very complex subject with many layers. And we hope we can break it down today with the help of the representatives from Itamaraty, in Brazil, from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and also from the private sector and from civil society. I will make a brief presentation of the panelists before we start. Also some logistical information I think we have recording today. We have one participant who is online, my colleague and friend Marco Túlio Scarpelli Cabral, who's speaking from Brasilia, and the other two panelists are here physically with us. Marco Túlio, it's a pleasure to have you today. Marco Túlio is a career diplomat. He's one of the most experienced and knowledgeable environment diplomats of our foreign service. He has served here in Brussels some time ago, I think dealing with environmental issues, has headed the environmental division in Itamaraty for a number of years, and he, I think, has worked in this area forever, for as long as I've known him. And it's a great pleasure and honor to have him here today. I think besides Brussels, he has served in Beijing as well. So Marco Túlio will be the first to speak today. We also have here Marta de Sá Pessoa. She's the founder of the fund Violet Vert Fund. Is this how we pronounce it? Violet. Like in French, or Violet and Vert Fund. I read her the information on the website of your fund, it's a financial institution, very interesting story of entrepreneurship. She's an entrepreneur in the financial sector, and she has mobilized and funds for sustainable investment and forest conservation projects. So I think it will be interesting to hear her story today. And she has founded the Vert Fund with two other women from the financial sector, Fernanda Mello and Victoria Dessá. They are your partners in this endeavor. So it will be a pleasure to hear from you as well. And the third panelist today is Juan Davi Ferreira, who's also here with us. He will, I think, talk to us about, he's the director of Latin Impacto. He's an impact investor, as the name says. I think he's in that, probably in that frontier between the private sector and the civil society sector, also mobilizing funds for sustainability projects and with a focus in the Amazon region. So I think he'll have many interesting things to talk to us about, and I think he'll tell his story as well and how he has been contributing to this objective of mobilizing funds for forest conservation and also with a good or positive repercussion on climate change, which is the focus of this panel. We tried, as the ambassador said, to bring together many different subjects. They appear to be different: COP30, climate change, forests, and climate finance. And we'll try to peel off these layers today and to make hopefully the subjects more clear to everyone. So Marco Túlio, I'll start with you. Each one will have probably 7 to 10 minutes with some flexibility, of course, to make an initial presentation. After that, each panelist will be able to comment on the other panelists' intervention, and we'll open the floor to the public as well to present some questions to us. So Marco Túlio, you are the representative of the presidency of COP30 in Belém at the end of this year. So I think everyone is very interested and curious to hear your perspective today and Brazil's perspective, looking ahead at COP30. You can also put us into the right context for this discussion. Where did this number 1.3 trillion come from? And maybe you could walk us through some of the history of climate finance as well, how our position, it has been a subject, a very important subject for Brazil for many years, for many decades. And if you could walk us through the evolution and maybe the changes that Brazil has proposed to its own position throughout the years, and wherever you think is relevant for this discussion today. So you have the floor. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Elias. Congratulations for Ambassador Costa Silva, yourself, and everybody else who is involved in organizing this very interesting event. As you said, I served in Brussels. I hold the European Union very dear. I am a Brazilian, but a great sympathizer of the European Union. So let's go direct to the point, since time is scarce. Our environment minister, Marina Silva, she often says that Belém, the next COP will be a COP in the forest, not a forest COP. She plays with these words in order to be clear that we are very conscious of the fact that the bulk of the problem of climate change is fossil fuels. Fossil fuels emit 5 times more than deforestation. So we shouldn't lose sight of this fact and not let forests be a distraction from the main issue. Even if we do everything right on forests, if we don't address the problem of fossil fuels, the Amazon will become a savanna just because of climate change. Having said that, 15% is not negligible. It's very important. And perhaps even more important than that, forests are much more than just a carbon stock or a carbon sink. Forests are one of the key ecosystems in the world in terms of biodiversity. It plays a key role in the water cycle. Even as far as climate change is concerned, forests are important also, not only for carbon, but also for their effects on the heat exchanges between the soil and the higher atmosphere through evapotranspiration. So they matter for climate change also in that other dimension. As I was saying, they also matter for soil protection. And equally, if not more important, they are the source of livelihood of a sizable portion of the world population, including some very vulnerable societies like indigenous peoples and some local communities in Brazil. And similar situations happen elsewhere in the world. So we have strong reasons to take forests seriously, and we are doing that. The reason why President Lula invited people to come to the Amazon and specifically Belém is because we want to give a high position in our order of priorities for the issue of forests in COP30. So the issue is broader than just finance, but I think it's a very appropriate moment for us to give a special focus to finance in this context. There is the reason why I think for finance, or one of perhaps the main reason why I think finance is central to our discussion now, is because other issues have been addressed. So until last year, there was no consensus on what our goal on forests was. But since then, we have a consensus on that. The 19th session of the UN Forum on Forests adopted the ministerial declaration stating the commitment to halt and reverse deforestation and forest degradation by 2030. This issue was already raised before several times, including in the Glasgow Declaration, but it was not a universal commitment until then. Some countries didn't agree with it. Now it's no longer the case. There is a universal agreement on that. So this issue is resolved. The question is how to get there, which is it's not simple at all. So this is a very that just highlights the importance of finance in this context. Um, Now, one issue to be addressed here is this notion of the $1.3 trillion for climate finance. Replying to the question where this came from, there was a report from the independent high-level expert group on climate finance, led by Vera Songwe, Nicholas Stern, and a few other leading economists, studied the issue of climate finance broadly, and they came to the conclusion that in order for us to address or to meet the goals of the Paris Agreement, specifically the 1.5 temperature increase limit, this is the flow of money that is necessary for developing countries to implement, to do their part in this effort. So this is where the notion came from. As you may be aware, this was written into the decision on the new quantitative goal for climate finance adopted last year in Baku in the climate COP. There is a more explicit commitment to mobilize 300 billion US dollars by 2035, but there is this notion that the amount of money necessary is 1.3 trillion. And there is a paragraph there that provides for the presidencies of Brazil and Azerbaijan as presidencies of COP29 and 30 to propose a report explaining in detail where should this money be allocated. So this is what we are doing now together with the Azerbaijanis. The incoming Brazilian presidency in that context, it created 4 so-called circles to advise the presidency. There's one circle about former COP presidents from Paris to Baku. So starting with Laurent Fabius, all the way to Babayev, which was the president of Baku, COP29. And they are leading these discussions, but it's a broadly consultative process. This is the circle of ministers of finance led by the Brazilian finance minister, Fernando Haddad. So they are preparing a report. This will be input. This is proposed by the Brazilian incoming presidency. Then we'll sit together with our colleagues from Azerbaijan, and we will also have consultation meetings with the broader international community to hear all existing relevant points of view. And we intend to present a report addressing this issue in Belém to clarify where, and in this context, we intend to clarify what proportion of those resources we believe should be channeled to addressing issues relating to forests. So the clearest target there is, just as I said, halt and reverse deforestation and forest degradation by 2030. So this means fighting existing deforestation. It also means great efforts in the area of forest restoration, but not simply monocultures of commercial varieties, often exotic, but really restoring biodiverse tropical forests, which is very complex. To give you one idea, to restore a tropical forest here in Brazil with 10 species, which is a fraction of what exists in reality, it costs about 8 times more than to plant a commercial eucalyptus forest in the same area. So it's very expensive. These are undomesticated species, but we're committed to doing that. Brazil, in its NDC, it took the commitment to restore 12 million hectares, that is 120,000 square kilometers, roughly the territory of Portugal, from now to 2030. It's a very ambitious target. We are serious about it, but we don't underestimate the difficulty to get there. So all these issues, they highlight the importance of climate finance in order to do what we committed to do. And Brazil is a middle-income country. So among tropical forest countries, we are among those with the highest per capita income. We have a group of tropical forest developing countries of 19 countries. We're working together to try to move forward on these issues. This comprises all countries from the Amazon, plus Guatemala, Mexico, Cuba, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the Republic of the Congo, Ghana, Sri Lanka, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Papua New Guinea. In this group of countries, only Malaysia has a higher per capita income than Brazil. Others have similar, well, Mexico, I think now is a bit higher than Brazil, but I mean, we're at a similar level of development, and many countries are much poorer than us. And it is already a daunting task for us to address these targets, and much more so in other countries, in other tropical developing countries, some of which even are facing domestic conflict and so on. So finance is crucial for us to meet our goals. And we're studying very systematically all the options on the table. It's a broad range of tools, and we're convinced that only a combined basket of different tools will get us there. This includes grants through the GCF, the GEF, debt for nature swap, blended finance, green investment, the carbon market in its many dimensions, both regulated and voluntary, both at the jurisdictional level and at project level. One area that was not appropriately addressed was the remuneration of standing forests. Some countries which are highly forested and with low deforestation, such as Gabon, Suriname, and Guyana, they complain that there's a perverse incentive nowadays in that they get hardly anything for the fact that they protected their forests very well, and that there's no significant risk of deforestation in these countries, because many of the tools are designed to address deforestation. So if you have a low risk of deforestation, you are not rewarded for that. So we are proposing, together with other partners, including some key European partners, the creation of a new financial institution called the Tropical Forest Forever Facility, which is designed to be an investment fund. So it's not about grants, it's about investment. It will pay interest on the money invested up to a certain level. We're designing it in order for it to be very low risk, AAA. And so it will pay interest compatible with the market in the order of 3% a year. And every income that we obtain by investing these resources above 3% will be directed to tropical forest developing countries in proportion to the forest to the area of forest that they conserve. So generally, the financial architecture for addressing forest finance was satisfactory, with this exception. There was a gap to address this issue, and this is why we are, together with partners, leading the creation of this new fund. We hope to have it operational by Belém. It doesn't depend only on us. We're working hard for that together with our partners, but we cannot guarantee. But that's it. We're looking forward to it. And with that, we think we'll have a complete institutional framework. But then the task remains to allocate sufficient and appropriate resources. Although the institutions are in place, for instance, the carbon market, in Baku, we finalized the regulation of Article 6 of the Paris Agreement, which provides for the carbon market. We have it all in place, but we have to make this machinery move at the speed required. So we need much, much more resources than we already have, but we don't need to create new mechanisms other than the TFFF that I just spoke about. So yeah, finance is central. to address this goal. The issue of forests is broader than that, and there are many other issues to be addressed at COP30, such as synergies among the Rio Conventions, biodiversity, desertification, and climate, the mitigation work program, just transition, the global stocktake of the Paris Agreement. It's a longer list, and also on the action agenda, and specifically in the context of the leaders meeting, which will take place 3 days before the COP. We're also planning to propose action in the area of integrated fire management. There's a lot of good work going on in this area, both at the global level under the leadership of the FAO, and at the Amazon level under the leadership of the Amazon Cooperation Treaty Organization. So we're working on these two fronts. Just next week, there will be the plenary of the Fire Hub initiative in Rome. A colleague who works with me will be there to discuss this issue and to propose to our counterparts to move forward on this issue at COP30, which means giving it a political push. There's a framework already in place, but there's a consensus that we need stronger political will, and the COP is a very good place to do that. So, as I said, there's a lot of issues going on. Finance it deserves to be highlighted as a central issue, and that's why I spoke more about it. But the picture is broader, and we are trying to see it on all fronts. I think I probably already used all my time for the moment. So I'll stop here and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Marco. I hope you can stay a little bit more with us for the ensuing debate. I think I rushed so much in the presentation of the panelists that I forgot to say that you are the head of the COP30 Forest Unit, and you are there here in that capacity. So thank you very much. And you can go back to these issues that you mentioned in your second intervention. It would be a pleasure to hear from you. Next in our panel is Marta de Sá. Thank you for being here. She has been participating in the Amazon Week, in the other capitals as well. So thank you for coming to Brussels to share with us your thoughts. I started in the presentation by talking about your experience as an entrepreneur. But I think we want to hear your story from you. And how do you see these challenges from a private sector perspective? How do you see the 1.3 trillion number, which is a big number, again, from that perspective of a business person, as well as a person who is probably and certainly interested in ensuring that investment is also respects the environment and sustainable development. So please, you have the floor.
Hi, can you hear me? Thank you so much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. I think I'll talk very briefly about me. I don't like to talk about me. I prefer to talk about finance and financial innovation and instruments. But I started in the financial sector 15 years ago, and I was responsible for the first public offering of the agri bond in Brazil. It was in 2012, and it was the first time that we were bringing capital market investors to invest in the agri sector. We did a transaction together with Syngenta and Bunge at the time, but not to finance those companies, but to finance the value chain. So how can we make sure we create a financial instrument that connects institutional capital to the last mile? So we were at the time financing, it was input financing, crop term financing, to local cooperatives, distributors, and farmers on the ground, very much related to grains and cotton at the time. And then moving forward, 10 years later, we did the first blended finance instrument together with Natura And it was the first time that we tested bringing capital market investors and institutional investors to finance local communities in the Amazon. So this was in 2023, and then we had this transaction. It was the first time that the IFC financed local communities in the Amazon, and then we had a blended finance instrument. It was a CRA, which is our Brazilian agri asset-backed security. Sorry if I'm too specific here. It was a two-tranche instrument, so we had concessional capital and market capital, and we had also a side vehicle that was a technical assistance facility funded by grants that we were treating this as an enabling conditions facility. That's what we called it, ECF, to provide technical assistance to the same cooperatives that were in a social bioeconomy in the Amazon. And this is so far so good. So we have 0 default rates at the moment. But now it's, okay, what's next? So next is, how can we scale it? So now we are launching our first fund to go from 15 cooperatives to 1,500 smallholder farmers. We are financing smallholder cocoa farmers in the Amazon in Pará and in the Atlantic forest in the south of Bahia. And in order to do this, so how can we multiply our capacity by 100? We are investing a lot in technology processes and building kind of this infrastructure behind it, because we think that in order to translate it, I think we are a translator. So we need to translate in the same fund smallholder farmers' language, which sometimes are illiterate and they don't have access to internet. And the maximum that they do have is talk through WhatsApp. And then you have the field agents. And then you have the IFCs and institutional investors. And then you have the corporates like Natura. So we are kind of connecting all of them and creating a financial instrument that is a win-win situation. So how can we have the investors winning because they're allocating capital in something very relevant and also profitable? So we think that in order to bring mainstream investors, we need to have economic development too. It's not only about impact, but at the same time, we do need at this moment concessional capital. So we need to create track record. So we are proving the models. Many of the mainstream investors are not ready for this yet. And that's why we need to bring concessional capital to create a larger buffer, to create this track record. And then when they are confident enough, we can decrease the concessional capital ratio. But this takes a little time. We did this exactly this 15 years ago with the traditional agri sector. At the time we had the senior tranche, so the market tranche was 100% covered by insurance at the time because investors couldn't analyze the risk correctly and price it. So we decided to, okay, the insurance company knows historical performance is very good. Diversified portfolio has historical losses below 2%. They know it, but investors don't know it. So let's put this translation piece where I start creating track record. And then 2 years later, we were issuing billions of reais. And then the investor said, I'm ready. Now I know it. I don't need insurance anymore. You can create a mezzanine tranche. You can reduce the subordination ratio. So I think we are 10 years later in the same wave, but in the new format of the layer of sustainability. And this also comes with data. So how can we collect data on the ground with high integrity and combine this with public databases, satellite images, and all the technology that is available today and was not available 2 years ago, maybe. That's it.
Thank you very much, Marta. Let's go to Juan Davi Ferreira. I will ask a similar question to you. if you could tell us your story from the civil society sector and also an impact investor, it would be great. And address the same issues that asked Marta about how does civil society organizations and entities like yours see a target like this? How do you see the interaction between governments, multilateral institutions, and the private sector? Does that serve as an incentive for risk-taking, for engagement with these targets and with these initiatives? Thank you very much. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, and thank you as well for the whole team at Itaramati for the invitation to be here today. My name is Juan David Ferreira. I'm a Colombian national, and I'm the programs director at an organization called Latinpacto. I'm going to start doing a little bit of precisions on your presentation, Elias. And it is that we are not an impact investor per se, but we are what we call an ecosystem builder. And that involves, we bring together different types of actors such as philanthropies, intermediaries such as accelerators, academia, impact investors as well, of course, banks and other types of actors who are involved or who are interested in creating impact, not only in the Amazon, but in Latin America as a whole, in Latin America and the Caribbean. We are an organization based in Colombia, but we have, of course, teams in Argentina, in Mexico, and certainly in Brazil. And of course, based on this, we are extremely interested in climate action and talking about biodiversity, not only from an Amazon scope, but a regional scope, a global regional scope. And globally, we collaborate with what we call our sister networks, which are organizations similar to us, but are autonomous. And we have sister networks here in Europe, based in Brussels, and in Philanthropy House called Impact Europe, which was the former EVPA. We also have AVPN based in Asia and AVPA based in Africa. Together, we bring over 1,500 organizations who are working in development, who are working in creating impact in their own regions. And our organization, Latinpacto, contributes with 250 of these organizations who are either based in the region or are interested in creating impact in the region from abroad. Now coming a little bit more into detail, I'm going to talk about the programs area of my organization. And within the programs area is where we host, of course, the whole climate action and biodiversity program. And this program, of course, is working not on mobilizing investment per se, but in facilitating and creating the enabling conditions for investors, especially impact investors. And a lot of the things, of course, Marta mentioned and shared is things that our members have been working about. So, for example, the CRAs, one of our members is Instituto Arapiaú, who have been done it amazingly as well in Brazil. Yeah, I thought that's what I thought. So based on this, we are working in two ways. The first one is through strengthening, building capacities, and as well fostering knowledge around climate action and biodiversity areas, focusing on the Amazon. And right now we are focusing on three main issues. The connection between innovation, technology, and biodiversity. And this is something we're working with two organizations, the CAF, the Development Bank of Latin America and the Caribbean, and Trafigura Foundation. We're working strongly with around creating bioeconomy and aligning bioeconomy agendas, and in two different ways. First, between public policy bodies and investors and philanthropists, and then on a regional level on how to align the bioeconomy agendas between Amazon countries such as Peru, Colombia, and Brazil, of course. So we are right now producing a research that will be launched during our annual meeting in Medellin that is going to be hosted this year. And finally, we are working on the other side on capital mobilization. This capital mobilization is not return seeking, but is actually more grant based. And for this, we are working on a program called the Green Catalytic Fund with Coca-Cola, Bio Foundation, the Inter-American Development Bank, the Green Climate Fund, and well, the Amazon unit at the IDB, who are also present here at the Amazon Week, both in Brussels and in Berlin. What we are doing through this fund is to support intermediaries such as accelerators, innovation agencies, incubators, to support over 500 enterprises who are working on two main areas: decarbonization, and this has a wider scope in the whole Latin American region, and a more precise scope on working on nature-based solutions in the Amazon countries. So we are just in the process of announcing the organizations that we're going to support. So if you're interested, you can stay tuned as well, and do reach out if you want to learn more. And on the other side, of course, beyond that, what we do is that we have a representation of what our members do. So as I mentioned, we have different members such as Instituto Arapiaú, Instituto Meraki, organizations, investors such as Nest, such as KPTL, who have a long track record here in the Amazon. And the way in which we support them is giving visibility and providing support through the innovative finance models that they carry out. And as well, we try to amplify the concept of how you can deal with flexible capital in their organizations, and in their, of course, interventions. What we really want to work as well with them is to understand better the concept of the whole continuum of capital. The continuum of capital is something very interesting that was actually developed here in Brussels by our team at Impact Europe. And it involves how, and as well, that was something that Marta was addressing. How can you use philanthropic capital, impact investment capital that is focused on impact, and impact investing capital that is with impact, so finance might be the larger driver, work together, collaborate, and create outcomes. So in this way, we work with our philanthropists on different ways. So for example, they are structuring and supporting ecosystem-based services, which based on some early accounts that I overheard on Monday in Madrid, it's right now over the trillion that the whole Amazon rainforest contributes to ecosystem services. The second one is doing something very important, and it's creating the enabling conditions for investment and for mobilizing private capital. A lot of organizations are always mentioning that there's not such things as enabling conditions, that they are difficult to navigate, but that no one wants to fund them. So we're asking as well and creating as well these types of coalitions where organizations can put in their money, and we can as well support the improvement of the conditions for investment, and as well for the organizations who are on the ground to access this investment. Because now that we're talking about this, there is, based on the conversations that we've had, there seems to be a mismatch between what the organizations on the ground are looking for and the capability and the capacities they have, and the type of money that is flowing through the different funds. So we need really to work on addressing that mismatch, that gap, because it's not really a financing gap, but a gap on like a misunderstanding of the conditions to accelerate the money flows. On the other side, we're working with investors with impact. Finalizing with philanthropy, they are also the ones who are using this flexible capital. So they do a lot of concessional capital. They prepare early stage, in the case of market-based nature solutions. And they do it with forgivable loans. They do it through revenue-based financing, among other instruments. Because in here they are preparing organizations to go to the next type of money that the entrepreneurs or the community-based organizations might seek, and that is investment for impact. So organizations who are investing and they value and they in their own compass, impact is more important than finance. And these are the organizations that help this type of entrepreneurs on this type of associations to navigate around the valley of death, which is that part of the growth process of an enterprise where most of the ventures fail. So in this way, they do support it as well with a lot of concessional capital, a lot of innovative finance, with a lot of more flexibility, and it helps them as well connect, and they help them as well with new capabilities and connect them as well with follow-on investment. And in that way, you end up within the private sector and within the impact ecosystem with investors with impact, these are organizations that their compass on finance, it's more towards finance than towards of course, without relegating impact, but finance is their main driver. And in this way, these organizations come in and they do support scale. They do use sometimes more traditional finance instruments to help them grow, to help them achieve sustainability, and of course, consolidation. Of course, there are other ways which have been mentioned, such as blended finance, where these organizations kind of collaborate. And of course, the type of model as well that Marta was mentioning. A little bit on the work that we're doing is we're happy as well to be here in a panel hosted by the Brazilian Embassy, is that we have a Pan-Amazon vision. So our work is not solely on the Brazilian Amazon, but we are working to connect the different Amazons, and we are prioritizing, of course, right now Peru, Colombia, and Brazil, without forgetting the other countries such as Ecuador, Bolivia, or Guyana. And we are working in a way in which how can we foster ownership of investors based in Colombia, based in Peru, philanthropies based in Peru, based in Colombia, around how they mobilize their capital towards the Amazon. Because when you start thinking, Brazil has a very much advanced ecosystem on that, and there's a lot of ownership from Brazil in these topics. When in contrast, Colombia and Peru, there's still a lot of gaps in that sense. When you see the main funders, for example, on the Brazilian and the Colombian Amazon, most of them are foreign. So you have Skoll Foundation, you have the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation, you have, of course, international cooperation. So we want to foster more ownership and more mobilization of local capital towards the Amazon. And in that way, we want to work in partnership with the Brazilian ecosystem and, of course, with international funders to prepare or to structure investment vehicles or funding vehicles that allow for more local capital to be brought into the Amazon.
Can we move to the very interesting presentation, but maybe you could supplement these ideas as we go to the second stage of is it possible?
Of course.
Can we do that?
Yeah.
Okay, but thank you very much. Let's move, I think, start the debate. I will ask one question, but I'd like to give the panelists an opportunity to comment on what they heard from the other panelists, if you wish to, or supplement any thoughts from your initial interventions. Would you like to say anything in commentary to what has been said? Please, Marco, you can start. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I would just like to complement the two previous speakers. When I said we need a diverse and sophisticated basket of instruments to finance our efforts to halt and reverse deforestation and restore and use forests in a sustainable manner, the type of thing they're doing is a very important part of that and a difficult one. Having this fine-grained understanding of the market, building the bridges between people who are on the terrain, doing sustainable development, and investors on the other side of the table. This is very important. It's not a simple work, but it's a vital one. We need the forests to be profitable. People need to understand there's only in the Brazilian Amazon, there are roughly in the rainforest proper, there are about 15 million people living there. These people have to make a living from a standing forest. If they cannot make a living from a standing forest, the temptation to chop the forest and raise cattle or something else is always very great. So there needs to be ways to have a sustainable use of the forest. And the type of clever investments that you are promoting is a key part of that effort. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco. Marta and Juan, if you want to supplement.
Yeah, one thing that I think is important, very related to what also Marco and who were telling. The other thing that we are testing at the moment is how can we build a different, we're calling it a payment system, but we are working, for example, in the state of Pará together with TNC, the Nature Conservancy, on a project that is on cattle traceability. So we are developing a payment structure that we start paying. So this is also about what Marco was saying, how can we align incentives? So this is about aligning incentives on the ground. So what we are building is a system that if the farmer opts into the traceability system of the state, he will receive a premium. So we will PIX him. PIX is our instant payment. We will PIX him directly. So it doesn't matter if it's the direct or indirect supplier, will PIX him on his bank account. So this is something that we are testing at the moment, but I think we can use the same concept for payment for ecosystem services, for example, and then combining. We think those are modular things. So basically we have 4 financial instruments that orbitate the nature-based solutions space, which is credit coupled with technical assistance. Then you have payment for ecosystem services, traceability premiums, and carbon credits or other types of credit. So if we are able to combine them in different ways, then we become more powerful because they complement each other. And then you really have benefit on the ground, and then you really scale.
Thank you very much. Juan.
No, I would only like to address as well a little bit on the title of the session on the 1.3 trillion gap that it's currently for climate finance. And while that number is of course impressive and important, I think one of the wider challenges or more pressing challenges is to mobilize the money that's already there in the climate funds and the biodiversity funds. Because when you talk to communities, when you talk to entrepreneurs, when you talk to what I like to call nature guardians and problem solvers, the money hasn't been arriving to them, and we've been promising and opening up funds for the last 10 to 15 years. So that is something as well that where we should guide the conversation. I understand, of course, there's a gap, but the money that is there, it's not moving. So it's quite difficult to show results to make more money to start moving. And I think the effective and efficient mobilization of these types of public funding of the, for example, the TFF that the different governments are building, can be the signal as well that capital markets are hoping or are expecting for them to start mobilizing their own assets. As we know, of course, public funding and private funding, they do different speeds. So it is crucial as well to start working on how to align these expectations and these speeds. And on the other hand as well, how can we drive faster the mobilization of capital towards the organizations, the people, the communities that are solving the problems in the Amazon.
Thanks a lot indeed. I'll ask one question, maybe a provocative question, sort of macro question as well. I think that it touches upon some of what has been said and about the incentives. What we see today is it's a complex issue, but it's also a very complex world. And the policy choices before governments and the international community are also becoming increasingly complex. So you have in a country like Brazil, the social challenges, health, education, and other social infrastructure and reindustrialization, and much else. On the EU side, for instance, you see also many and multiple challenges, either in the security area, the need to invest more, maybe in defense or security, competitiveness. So the Draghi report, for example, talks about an 800 billion investment gap to promote innovation in the EU area. And on the other hand, you have budgetary constraints. You have fiscal limits on governments, and which also affect the perception of private sector actors and the financial sector. So how do you see those competing interests? Is it making it more difficult for you to mobilize capital for sustainable development, for climate finance, or you think that these targets, these goals are compatible, are consistent with each other? How do you see that, this complexity, which goes beyond sometimes the climate finance issue? Thank you. Marco, again, if you would like to, you don't need to comment. Whoever would like to comment this, please take the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Elias. I accept the invitation. Yes, the moment is really not simple, not easy, but climate change doesn't wait. We have to face the challenges that are before us. As you said, I've been working with these issues on and off for a long time. We were colleagues in Brasilia back in 2003 and 4. And back then, it was already, we kept always noting how difficult the environment was. Back then, we also had the hostile US administration. The issue then was the Kyoto Protocol. And we joined forces with the European Union and other responsible actors, China, India, and moved forward. And we managed to protect the Kyoto Protocol and have a functioning regime for a while. Then, unfortunately, the Kyoto Protocol didn't continue for our purposes and effects. It exists, but there's no second or third commitment period. But anyway, we faced the challenges and we moved forward because that's what we have to do. We don't have a choice. So that's we will continue to do. At the same time, and it's part of addressing these challenges, we shouldn't let pessimism defeat us. There is progress. And this is one of the things that we will stress very much during our presidency, because otherwise it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If we convince ourselves that multilateralism doesn't work, it won't work. It can only work if we make it happen. I think when people started to build the European Union, then the Economic Community for Steel and Coal back in the 50s and 60s and so on, it also seemed to be a very daunting task. And yet you prospered, you insisted on it, and you have a very impressive community nowadays. So that's it. We have to think strategically, long-term, and move forward. Resources are particularly scarce, as you said. There are defense concerns in Europe and other key donors or key investors. We can't count very much on the United States for the moment, but we will move forward. And ideas and initiatives like the ones we've seen from the other two speakers are very helpful in that respect, in that they are trying to make viable business opportunities that are compatible with nature-based solutions and forest conservation and sustainable use. So there's no shortage of private money looking for sustainable investments. This is not the whole solution. Some areas are simply not profitable. We do need budgetary government money, grants. All this is true, but we need to make the most that we can from private investment as well. So these are my comments for the moment.
Thank you, Mark. Marta, would you like to say anything about the question? Thank you.
I think today it's a very gray area on the investor side. So we took 2 years to approve $1.2 million from the IFC. We are taking another 9 months to approve $5 million in the Cocoa Fund. And everybody says this is best in class. So it doesn't make sense. It's so little money, takes so much time. Transaction costs are so high. We are working together with the CPI lab, the innovation lab from the Climate Policy Initiative, to try to understand how investors deal with their own internal approval processes so we can get them more ready. So how can I make their job easier? Because if they have like, I don't know, a checklist of 20 items, maybe if we're all investors and each of us has 20 items, maybe 15 would be common among everyone, but nobody speaks about it. So which are those 15? Can I prepare the deals already considering those 15? How can we really reduce transaction costs? How can we be more transparent? How can we really make this happen? Because my perception is that capital committed is maybe 100%, and then capital deployed is 10%. So it's not a problem of commitment, it's a problem of allocation. So what's going on? we do not have a shortage of capital. We do have a shortage between commitment and allocation. And I think this is the thing that we really need to unlock and understand more.
Great, very, very interesting. Juan.
No, totally agree as well with Marco and with Marta. And I will address as well your question and the current global context. Of course, there's different competing priorities, with governments prioritizing already more the areas of course, security instead of, for example, aid development. And of course, we saw this quite strongly in Latin America and of course in the Amazon with the end of USAID. USAID was one of the largest donors and actors involved in the Brazilian Amazon, the Peruvian Amazon, well, actually most of the Amazon countries, with special projects as well in the Colombian, Peruvian, and Brazilian Amazon, and Ecuadorian as well. And with that slash, what we've been able to talk with our membership, that's part of our network, is that there's been a downfall on the millions of dollars and the projects that have been stopped, that have been halved. So it is currently, honestly, like a very grim scenario. But luckily, us Latin Americans, we're always trying to find as well solutions instead of problems. And in that way, the main areas of conversation is how can we mobilize or how can the private sector can start addressing this gap in financing that's been left by the void. Not only USAID, but also, for example, DFC, who was as well one of the leading organizations working in blended finance structuring deals in the Amazon, and right now as well with the UK Development Agency as well, cutting resources towards more funding for security measures. And that leads the question on who is going to be able to address that or to take over that gap of funding. It's going to be super difficult, in all honesty, so we need to be more efficient and effective with the resources that are available. We need to mobilize faster the private philanthropic sector, and we also need for organizations, so the multilateral system, the multilateral banks such as the IDB, CAF, and in Brazil specifically, for example, the BNDES, to act more swiftly in overcoming these current challenges that have been presented with the current world scenario. So that's.
Thank you very much, Juan. I think we have 10 more minutes to close our panel. Until 4, it's 10 to 4. Now I'd like to open the floor to questions from the audience. Also, Excellencies, if you would like to present questions to the panel, feel free to do that. And I think we can take some questions from the audience as well. Thank you very much. Thank you. Any questions, please?
So good afternoon.
Please introduce yourself.
Yes.
I know that you were
I
part
am-
of one of the panels.
I am Julie Dumont. I represent Wallonia-Brussels International, French-speaking external affairs for the Department of Research and Innovation, and I represent them in Brazil for 12 years now. I have a background in law and specialized in technology transfer and negotiation of public-private partnerships. So that gives a bit of my area of work. I work on a science project. It's a science and gastronomy diplomacy project in the Amazon with partners from Belgium, Switzerland, and the Amazon region. We target for pilot phase the Para region. And the idea is to develop new products, processes, and events, tasting events, mixing knowledge, traditional knowledge, scientific and business one, thus creating an ecosystem where we could build new products, new companies, all this in collaboration with the local communities, providing the opportunity to create new business and also training opportunities. So this is the concept I work on, and I was really interested to discover how fragmented the scenario is on the field, with everyone doing something but not really talking together, and also how fragmented are the tools that we have on the trade side, on the research side. And so I would like to ask to our panelists how they see, or do they have examples, because Latin Impacto is really targeting this kind of projects. Do you have some examples of success stories, and how can we articulate the tools we have and the stakeholders that are around the table better? Thank you.
Please, let's collect some more questions, and then the panelists can answer all of them together. Please.
Hi, good afternoon. Can you hear me? Andrea Rodriguez. I'm a climate finance advisor for GIZ for the Euroclima program. Thank you very much for this event. Very interesting and very good to hear experiences from Brazil on how to, and also from Latin America on how to mobilize capital. We as a program, we are supporting governments in Latin America and the Caribbean to meet their climate change needs, but also their sustainable development related needs. We also have as a mandate to help mobilize different stakeholders from the private sector in Europe and towards Latin America, and to help them find opportunities. And of course, opportunities that are aligned with NDCs, that are aligned with sustainable development goals. But as the panelists have rightly mentioned, a lot of times we hear about the perception of risk that many of the private sector stakeholders, at least on this side, see in areas such as the Amazon, but at the same time, the issue of scale. And I know that there are many challenges, but as you also mentioned, as Latin Americans, we're always trying to find solutions. So the question that we have, especially for a program like us that deploys technical assistance type of support, is if we would need to really prioritize some of the different challenges that we have, where could the type of support that we could do go to, knowing that there are many things that need to be covered, basically. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone would like to ask any questions at this point? So I'll give the floor to the panelists who wish to address the questions that were posed from the audience. Thank you very much. And thank you for being here, for attending these events of the Amazon Week. Thanks a lot. Would you like to go first? One will go first.
Yeah, we'll just address as well the first question. And thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, it is true that there's a lot of fragmentation and even worse, a lot of duplication. So sometimes you find two different agencies, two different organizations covering the same needs of the same community, or doing something or like strengthening capabilities in the same community with the same basic curriculum. And we are trying as well to address this. And one of the best ways to do that is two ways. Of course, data. So we're collecting data and hopefully more geospatial data on what communities are being served by where are investors working and what is currently going on, and of course a lot of information sharing. I come from the impact ecosystem, investors, philanthropists. They're always talking about collaborate, but once you get too close, you start seeing that even then there's a little bit of competition. So it's a little bit of how can you change that competition mindset towards a collaborative one. And the other thing is sometimes collaboration gets confused with inaction, and we are trying as well to create collaborations that are actionable and that deliver progress. And that's why as well we participate in different coalitions. One of the most interesting one is the Pan-Amazon network for bioeconomy. This is a network that is led by the World Resources Institute and Conservation International. I'm part of the steering committee. And it's over 80 organizations working together to address different areas around bioeconomy, public policy, market access, access to finance, and of course, non-financial support. And it's been quite successful. It was launched in Belém 2 years ago, and this year is going to be the second meeting in Leticia, in the triple border between Brazil, Colombia, and Peru. And it has shown a lot of progress. Organizations work together, they share information, they are developing their own type of research. So that's something super interesting that is happening. And the good thing as well, as the name says it, it's Pan-Amazonian. So we have organizations from Brazil, Venezuela, Guyana, and among others. And some others as well. Brazil has been the leading force on collaborative interventions for the Amazon. There's PPA, Parceiros pela Amazonía. There's also Uma Concertação pela Amazonía, which are organizations amongst donors and investors working together with a common agenda to advance finance and results in the Amazon, basically.
On the TA question, I think that I would try to maximize leverage. So how can you make sure that you're multiplying your capital, because it's scarce and you know it can be very powerful? So for example, investing in a first loss trench or combining technical assistance on the ground with access to credit or payment for ecosystem services or different financial instruments to make sure that it is being multiplied.
Yeah, I would like to make a few comments on the issue of some positive examples. There are indeed interesting experiences in Brazil, for instance. There are some very interesting experiences in terms of sustainable extractivism of both timber and non-timber forest projects. There are, for instance, extraction of tropical woods in a sustainable way in concessions, which has been going on for decades already, and successfully so. And also, there are very interesting experiences with agroforestry. Some native species from the Amazon and other tropical species can be cultivated along with standing forests. It's the case of cocoa for chocolate production, açaí, berry, and cupuaçu. There's a municipality in the state of Pará, which is particularly successful in that, Tomeaçu. So they have a very successful agroforestry operations there. And these are labor-intensive activities. There is some level of added value, industrialization of chocolate and other fruit concentrates. So there are interesting experiences. I mean, the scale is not up to what we need to do, but they are interesting seeds of things that could grow bigger and be part of the solution that we're looking for. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marco, and also the other two panelists. Unfortunately, I think we'll have to close our panel now. I think everyone seems to have enjoyed a lot and would like to stay more, but we need to close now. I'd like to thank the panelists for their presentations. Marco, good to see you again. Thank you very much for taking the time, and you too for being here present. There is recording, I think, of this session, which is great. I myself will have to watch the recording to, I think, consolidate some of the knowledge that we acquired here today. Very interesting discussion. And if Ambassador allows me, I'd like to thank MEP Elder Souza Silva and the DBR and the European Parliament for hosting this event, for allowing us to have this session of the Amazon Week here in this noble legislative house. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Session is closed.